I'm back. All right. So, new markers here. Nothing crazy. You can get these at Walmart, you know, and King's Art, ink pen. They come in a set. It's like 12 bucks. Not, nothing, you know, don't make any money off of them, so just saying. But it is cool. Very nice. So, what are we going to draw here? Kind of want to get this whole face kind of in there. Yep. This whole thing, I kind of got this idea from an old, it was like the very first computer graphics made thing ever. It was like a knight in armor, and he came busting out of the stained glass window, and it was like for some Sherlock Holmes thing. And it was old. It was back in, you know, the freaking, you know, the early 80s, I want to say. In the early 80s. Yeah. So we're going to draw a little face in here. You know, kind of in the glass. So we got one eye there. Let's start with some other detail. Yep. Yeah, I was just watching this funny thing of on Instagram. I was outside on my little break there a minute ago having a smoke, and it showed this trucker who went to like a rest stop, and he took a deuce in there and he didn't flush, and the guy came running out after him, all pissed off. He's like, "Hey man, if you ever come to my thing again and you don't flush, I'll have a state patrol waiting for you." He was super pissed. I don't blame him. You know, he was like the janitor of the place. And it's just like, holy fuck, you know, like, first of all, what kind of asshole doesn't flush? Like, you don't flush your deuces that you leave? Are you one of those weird, is it like some weird fetish or something? Where you don't flush and get off because some other person's gonna have to flush either to clean the toilet or to, you know, use it even, you know, you're gonna have to do something. So, I don't know, I thought it was kind of funny. And this guy was super pissed. He's like, "Man, if you ever come back here, I'm gonna have the state patrol waiting for you." I was just like, what the hell? But, you know, I kind of don't blame the guy. Like, what kind of jerk doesn't flush, you know? It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So we got his little nose going on here. And his eye there, and his other eye. Yeah, I'm getting like kind of a goblin-y looking little guy. Getting kicked out of the church. Kicked out of the church for being a goblin. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't believe it though. Like, what do you mean you didn't flush? And that guy was proper pissed too. He's like, "Oh, I can't believe it. You didn't flush, you son of a bitch," and blah blah blah. That's kind of funny. It was kind of funny, you gotta admit. But at the same time, it's kind of gross. It's like, what do you mean you didn't flush? Gross son of a gun. So, do some of that. Some cracked glass everywhere. Yeah. You know, it's funny, school. I feel like school robs a lot of time. Robs a lot of time from me and my son hanging out or doing anything. Some people say, well, what about all the stuff they gotta learn? And it's like, yeah, they do gotta learn stuff, but like I was saying earlier, a lot of that stuff's pretty useless these days. A lot of the crap they teach them. I asked them, I'm like, have they taught you anything about, you know, AI or like robotics or anything? And it's like, you can get into special classes. you know, but for the most part, no, they haven't. And it makes you wonder, like, what are they teaching them? Like, if anybody out there is a subscriber and your kid is in school, my kid's 13, it's like, what kind of stuff do they teach kids these days, you know? Is it really worth a damn, or is it just going to be is it just the old crap they taught me back in the 80s and the 90s, you know? Just, you know? I've known how to run my mouth my whole life, so it's like, that kind of stuff's unnecessary. I don't know. Makes you wonder. You know, and then a lot of universities these days just teach kids how to be victims, it seems like. Come out of a nice, you know, a university where back in the day you were almost guaranteed a high level of income and a very prestigious job, you know. And not anymore. I think the racket is up. You know, back in the 60s and stuff, like during Vietnam, you know, a lot of people dodged the draft by going to college. And the only reason they were able to go to college is because they had money, because college costs a lot of money. Or you had a scholarship because you were, you know, Goodwill Hunting or something. But today, it's like any, you know, Tom, Dick, or Harry can go to school, bust out a bunch of college loans, and then you're in debt for the rest of it. It's a business, you know? It's a business. And because it's a business, you know, they gotta make money. And how do they make that money? By telling you you need this degree or you're gonna be a worthless loser your whole life working at a fucking gas station. And it's like, well, I know people that, you know, went to college and are working at a gas station. Not because of a lack of trying or something, it's just because there's nothing out there. And a lot of these newer degrees, you know, are worthless. You know, the whole classic trope of the underwater basket weaving degree, you know, it's true. It's like, fuck, man. It's so true. And it's sad because, you know, you get all these people in student loan debt, kind of hustled into it, you know. And it's like, yes, they did sign the paperwork, and I'm not excusing that. I'm not saying, oh, let's just forget about it. I mean, I have college loans, and you know, they've come after me several times, and I imagine they will keep doing it. But yeah, it is kind of a racket, and yeah, that's all I gotta say about it. It is a freaking racket, but like I also said, people, you know, you're the ones that signed the loan. I'm the one that signed the paper, so I'm responsible for that. I'm fine with that, you know, that is what it is. But I can tell you this much, I will not be, if my kid tries to go to college, you know, he better be going to be a brain surgeon or like a top tier lawyer, you know. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter. You know, I hate to say it like that, but it's, in my experience, it's the truth. It's the truth be told, that's what it is that college, unless you're going to be something like that, is pretty not necessary. Like, there's nothing that I went to college for back in the early 2000s that I could not have learned off of a YouTube course today for free. How sad is that? Nothing. There's no artistic, you know, technique or historical thing. Because a lot of people think, oh, you went to art college, huh? And it's like, yeah, but there's more to it than just like I went to art college. You know, when you go to school like that, you learn about way more than just your degree. You know, I'm an illustrator, so obviously I learned a lot of illustration stuff. But a lot of stuff I learned was pretty worthless. You know, they had math for artists, which was just basically advanced geometry that I had to take, and I'm horrible at math, so it dragged my whole grade down. A freaking geometry class. And then half the stuff you take isn't even related to your degree at all. You know, you got your general requirements classes. You know, a lot of people think, oh, you went to art school, just a bunch of worthless art bullshit, you know, and it's like, to a degree it is. But it's also a bunch of stuff that, you know, you need to know. So, weird stuff going to college. Very weird. Weird situation. You meet a lot of weird people that might not see it your way, and that's okay. That's part of the whole thing, you know? It's learning how to stand in line. That's all it really is, honestly. How do you stand in line? Yep, so our little demon fella here, he's gonna have the blackest of black eyes. So we need some more black in here to kind of bring your eye down here a little bit. We're gonna make his eyes black, and there's part of his mouth and the tip of his nose, and there's his nose, and you know. This is a weird pen. I got this the other day, and it said black on the thing, but it was white at the tip. I'm like, what the fuck? And I had to like read the instructions, and well, it was weird. I got it figured out though. So yeah, when my kid is old enough, you know, part of me used to really encourage the military, but then the parent in me now is kind of scared to do that. I'm scared to tell him, yeah, join the military, man. Go there for, you know, 4 years, do what I never did, and get out of it, and then, you know, you'll be, you know, 25-ish, and you can go have the rest of your life, and you'll have a GI Bill, and you'll have the VA, and so I guess part of me still is kind of encouraging that. But, you know, the parent in me doesn't want him to do that. I don't want to see him go off to war, and some people say, well, you know, if he's a cooker or something, he's not going to be in danger. And it's like, hey, well, if you're on base, you're in danger. And if you're in the military, you're expected to fight if need be. You know, I was thinking of doing that when I was throwing around the idea in my early 20s of joining the Navy before I fucked up and went to art school. And I wanted to be a culinary specialist because that's what I was kind of into at the time. And that was just cooking. Here's me thinking like, oh, well, I'm just cooking. Nothing can happen, right? Wrong. A lot can happen. So you gotta be careful of those decisions, you know? You gotta be very careful. But, yeah. That's, I would have been expected to fight just like anybody else. Yeah, I would have been expected to fight just like anybody else. If I was on base flipping burgers and all of a sudden shit went down, I wouldn't just be able to be like, oh, sorry, sir, I'm just the burger flipper here. They'd be like, yeah, no, now you're flipping a gun, bro. So yeah, gotta be aware of that. Gotta be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're aware of it, then it's all good. So we're gonna finish his mouth right here. And then do the sharp teeth and stuff. Kind of like such. Because we're gonna come back in and fill that in with black. Yep, crazy stuff. So yeah, all the stuff you want your kid to do, you know, they're just gonna have to find their own way. I'll be able to help him out wherever I can, but a lot of it's gonna have to come from what he wants to do. That's okay. As long as I'm there to guide him and just kind of help him, right there, that would be more than I ever had. And nothing against the ladies out there, but at a certain point in their life, a boy needs a man to help him. My mom, when we were older, when we got to a certain age, like I said, she kind of just fucked off and was hanging out with her boyfriend. And, yeah, she'd come over and make sure we were alive or whatever, but, we were like 16 and 17. And, got in a lot of trouble in those years, and seems like she never really, I'm not gonna say she never gave a shit, but it just seems like, I guess, yeah, it kind of seems like she didn't give a shit, It seems like her life was more important. And then us at the very end of our 10-year ship with her, And, could have used some guidance on what to do, when you're that young and you don't know anything. I didn't have any guidance, and I feel like it did set me back for many years, and I don't really hold that against my mom, but it took me to be a parent to realize it, that's what it was and what was going on, and now that I'm a parent, I look back at a lot of the decisions she made, and I'm like, oof, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. And like I said, she wasn't a bad mom. She was just way more concerned with what she had going on, I guess, than what the rest of us had going on. So, yeah. Long story short, that's what it was. What do you do? Some people go to therapy for shit like that. I'm gonna draw a picture and tell you.